Hello and welcome back to DecentraLounge, brought to you by GlobalStake, your truly decentralized SOC 2 Type 2 certified bare metal blockchain infrastructure provider. I'm your host, Ryan Hazinski, head of protocol partnerships, along with my co-host, Wyatt Clancy, our VP of growth. And today we're kicking off season 5 with a conversation that dives into one of the most critical and often under the radar operational pillars of institutional digital assets: reporting, reconciliation, and real-time portfolio transparency. Our guest is Chase Cerveny, head of operations at MG Stover, a firm with deep roots in fund administration and crypto operations expertise. Chase's journey in the space has given him a front row seat to the evolution of fund operations for complex digital strategies, from hands-on administration to building the systems institutions need to scale with confidence. At MG Stover, Chase has been instrumental in bringing OTTO to life, a real-time crypto reporting and reconciliation platform designed to consolidate disparate on-chain and off-chain data, automate middle office workflows, and deliver the kind of transparency and accuracy institutional allocators, administrators, and auditors demand. Chase, welcome to DecentraLounge. Thrilled to have you and have this conversation today. Why don't we just start off a little bit with your background in Web3, what got you involved in the space, and how you came to join MG Stover?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, thanks, Ryan, Wyatt. Thanks for having me on. Happy to be here. My first job out of college was with MG Stover, funny enough. And this was back when they were a fund administrator. And I'll kind of get to that point in a sec, but I had no idea what fund accounting was. And I had a little exposure to crypto, and it turns out that the job was really just servicing crypto funds, hedge funds, venture capital funds. So I found myself spending most of my time digging through block explorers, looking at clients' portfolios, really just getting a lot of exposure to the current kind of state of investing into crypto, which again, back in 2020 wasn't too crazy. But I spent 2 years at MG Stover on their fund accounting team through 2021. So I got to see not only a lot of ludicrous portfolios, but just really interesting activity. It got me interested. And this is where I kind of was looking to make a move and go to the buy side of it. And so I moved over to a venture capital firm at the beginning of 22 and did mainly operations. So I helped their relationship with their admin, manage the books, worked with CPAs on tax and audit, worked with our legal on fund launches, policy drafting, all the unsexy work of fund management. But learned a lot in the 2 years I spent there. And then I came back to MG Stover specifically to work with OTTO, which, as you introduced, is our portfolio monitoring and reconciliation software. And for the past, I guess, 2 years almost at this point, been working to build this application, extend its product offering, and really try to get it in the market to help participants not only have visibility in the portfolio, but stay compliant and make sure they're on top of their reporting.
Very nice. Well, why don't we just get like a broader overview of MG Stover as an organization, just for people who are watching or listening and maybe haven't heard the name before, and then maybe we'll probably unpack OTTO especially.
Yeah, definitely. So MG Stover, I believe, started back in 2007, 2008. Again, as a fund administrator, and at the time there was no crypto funds. Their focus was really on traditional private fund administration. And then they ended up getting their first crypto clients around 2014 or 15, which at the time was just buying Bitcoin in their Coinbase account. But as things started to pick up, we realized that there was a big opportunity there to really take hold of the crypto investment space as far as fund administration. And so at that point in time, we actually did build the first iteration of OTTO. And this was purely meant to just be able to service the new crypto clients that were coming on board MG Stover's fund admin business. And like I said, there's a lot of iterations. OTTO, initially was called Coin Vantage. It was sold to Kraken at the time, and then we licensed the software from them to continue servicing our clients. And then it got to a certain point around 2021 when things got really crazy. DeFi was blowing up, that we realized we really needed to have more control over the direction of the software and just when it was being built out. So we ended up going back to the lab, rebuilding what we know today as OTTO. And so, yeah, the fund administration business was initially mainly traditional. And then I think at the peak of 21, I would say majority of the business was crypto and digital asset clients. And then the fund administration business was actually sold off to Securitize in April of this year, which left just OTTO, which is the main product offering at MG Stover at this point in time, on top of some middle office work as needed. But the main offering is the software, OTTO.
Very nice. So in that transition, moving away from sort of traditional to, more focus on the digital assets, was there, the moment in time where you realized that this is the future and this is why you wanted to build something more bespoke with OTTO, servicing people who, because obviously the industry is changing a lot, right? Like we're on the precipice of getting, we had the Genius Act in 2025. As we start off 2026, there's talk of the Clarity Act, and there seems to be all this regulatory and legislative clarity that's coming to our industry. Was it just the market momentum that took you into wanting to be just that go-to platform for servicing digital assets in that regard? Is it something about the market opportunity that you guys realized?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think if you would ask Matt Stover, who is the founder and CEO of MG Stover, it kind of just fell in his lap, right? They started to get a couple digital asset clients. They serviced them well. As more funds were starting up, they were like, we need an admin. And they obviously would like to find an admin that had been servicing crypto funds before. So it's just this domino effect that just continued to multiply before we, looked and we're like, wow, I mean, people are knocking on our doors. We were, not to be gloating, but we're turning people away because there was too many people that were looking for fund admins for crypto and digital assets. So it's one of those things where we just kind of got pushed onto the path, and it was chaotic. Crypto was chaotic, but we were one of the bigger players from the fund admin space in 2021. And so we just kind of ran with it. And then, OTTO, we never licensed OTTO out to the market until beginning of 2024. It was always an internal service software for MG Stover. But as we continued to build it out, Matt Stover realized that this is something that is needed in the market in general. There are lots of similar competitors and softwares out there, but the reality was we looked at it and we're like, from a reporting and an accounting perspective, this software has been tried and true through years and years of managing, official books and records for investment funds that have gone through audits. So I think Stover realized we had built this software, had been managing it with a team of accountants. And so that's kind of the perfect storm for us to really try to say, hey, maybe this is something that we can go beyond MG Stover. So yeah, it was kind of just a serendipitous collide of crypto coming into the investment space and us just being willing to accept it and then riding that wave.
What's the uptake been like? Because it seems like if you said this, people were coming to MG Stover looking at you, recognizing you sort of had this level of expertise. And now that since 24, where you're actually licensing out OTTO, I'd assume that the business traction for this platform has picked up significantly. And maybe let's talk about what makes it unique and how it's, what kind of differentiators it has compared to some of the competing products maybe that exist on the market today.
Yeah, no, I think that, the biggest kind of struggle from us was we're taking a product that was built internally that had a team servicing it. It was a slimmer, leaner team, right? Because it was just an internal tool that was servicing one business. So I think the biggest thing was for us to kind of switch gears to make this a product that, at the end of the day, this is something that fund administration company can use, CPAs can use, fund managers can use, institutional staking providers like yourself can use. So we realized there's all these different participants in the market that could use the software. And the way that I look at it is we're just good at grabbing data, and all the people want a different way to look at the data, whether it's a certain dashboard, reporting, how it's fed into various accounting systems. And so I think that, for us, it's been really trying to keep the product up with demand, which has always been kind of a good problem to have, I guess. You always want to, I think it's better to have more, have a supply problem than demand. But for us right now, it's really just building in earnest. We're constantly building this out. We always talk about we're never going to be finished. Crypto is constantly evolving. We're just trying to keep up with it. But yeah, I think that, from the perspective of us having that experience from MG Stover's fund administration and having OTTO service it, it's been an easier sell, right? Because if you're another accounting firm that is looking for a software to support their digital asset clients, you can have a little more trust in a software that has been used by accountants and is in servicing funds for years. And I think that for us now, I think OTTO is really unique because first, it was built by accounts and it was used, right? It was almost like a pilot phase, a 5-year-long pilot phase of making sure that it could be robust enough to service these institutional clients. And I think that, the other thing that we understand is we need to be compatible, right? We're not trying to replace legacy accounting systems. We're trying to add value to current workflows of our clients. And so that's always going to be somewhat custom, right? I mean, certain clients say, hey, I want just to bring this data into my own process and software or dashboard. A lot of clients want to use it themselves. We've even started like white labeling it so other firms can actually have this as their portal for their clients. And so I think for us, our really competitive advantage is one, just the experience, right? Because at the end of the day, we've really only been in the market for about 2 years, but the software itself has been around for coming close to 10 years at this point. So I think for us, it's really trying to make sure we are building it prudently in the right direction. But yeah, I think that it's really just us figuring out that, we've never been a team of software engineers. And so now we're building this software company and we're trying to figure out how to make it really useful to all participants. And hopefully eventually we make it down to retail where we can have a really affordable version from like an app where, at the end of the day, all taxpayers are going to have to pay or file taxes on the crypto. And it's very confusing unless you're, very plain vanilla trading on Coinbase. So I think that we have a really unique opportunity with the experience of how OTTO was kind of born and from its origins. And I think the other thing too is, we have people that have worked at CPA firms. Obviously, we've worked at a fund administrator. We've worked on funds on the fund side. So all of the market participants that we're going after, we have experience of understanding their issues, the problems they need solved, and how their workflows can be enhanced with a solution and product like OTTO.
That's really interesting that you have sort of that compatibility in mind where they can be easily integrated into the existing workflows of the clients that are going to use OTTO. Because I had often wondered, is it something where you just have to use the whole platform, or you could just kind of pick and choose what you need to be integrated into, that particular client's books or what have you. And then it's also exciting hearing that you probably one day will have a retail, because as someone who's, I guess, a retail participant myself in the industry, it's a struggle to do taxes. I mean, part of it is just complicated by the fact that, in general, we have a terrible tax treatment here in the United States of the way the IRS looks at these things. And it seems like there's rules that make no sense and so having the ability as a retail customer to maybe have a platform like OTTO, just be able to download everything, understand all my wallets. Because one of the things that I understand, even though I haven't used the product myself, is that it's very all-encompassing with what you've built with OTTO. So maybe speak to the kinds of chains that it services, how quickly you guys integrate new chains as things come online and customer demand surges, because to your point, this has been an iterative product that you've been building for nearly a decade now.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think from my perspective, and this is something that, I had a struggle with when I was at the venture firm. The one thing that I would do every single day, every morning was I'd update liquidity, right? We had what we called a portfolio cockpit. It was all done on Excel. We had, janky APIs pulling in pricing. We'd have to update activity, positions, look at portfolio attributions, look at breakdown, weighting of where assets were for risk, and all the other things needed for our traders and our portfolio managers to make decisions on the fund. And so the way I look at it is, we're really trying to make a one-stop shop where you can have complete monitoring, oversight of your portfolio. So from a front office perspective, for the traders, right? For the people that are making the decisions within the fund, they have visibility to say, where are all my positions at right now? What's the price? What's the weight of this asset class? Or what's my share of assets in this location from a counterparty risk perspective? Really trying to have a dashboard that gives you, full insight into what's going on. But then additionally, it's from reporting, right? So you might be trading on multiple exchanges, multiple wallets, self-custody wallets on blockchains, maybe trading on a few OTC desks. And then another big thing that we've been working really hard to support is a lot of these funds, open-ended or closed-ended, are investing into private placements, right? And usually the big pull there is they want to get allocation to the underlying token. And so, we've been really building out our private asset feature, which in general helps you just track the investments that are not being traded on chain or on a centralized entity, but also being able to track the vesting of those tokens, right? Being able to have vesting schedules populate in the application, track the progression of the vesting, making sure that you can validate vesting distribution so that you know that you're getting your tokens and you can keep tabs on everything. My old firm, we had, I would say 20 to 30 token related investments. And once again, I had this janky Excel sheet tracking all the vesting schedules, tracking what we're getting this month, what's due to be vested in the next year or so, managing the valuation of our locked tokens, right? That's always a big thing on how you apply a discount based on the discount for lack of marketability or the lockup that the tokens have. And so I think, from our perspective, we want to make sure we can support everything. Right now it's crypto. And so to your earlier question, we're constantly building out blockchains. That was probably our weakest link when we first went to the market, because a lot of our institutional clients, especially initially, they were mostly using custodians, OTC desks. They weren't really operating on chain. We're starting to see much more of that. So it's never ending. We have a team of integration engineers that are constantly building out new support for blockchains, as well as centralized venues. This isn't traditional finance where you have like a big handful of brokers or, custody accounts that you can kind of just simply integrate with and have full support over the industry. There are new custodians or exchanges that I'm finding every single day. So it's a nonstop race to continue building, which I don't really know when that will end. But that's how we market it. Our current support for all these different venues is just what it is right now. If there's something that you're trading on, we build it based off demand, right? As we get a new client trading on new blockchain or a new custodian, then we'll build that support. And the biggest reason is because we want to build robust support for those integrations or counterparties. And we need to make sure that we're seeing real data. We're making sure that transactions are reconciling. They're being classified correctly from an accounting perspective. I think for us right now, still focused on crypto and digital assets, but whether your assets are, in a smart contract earning yield, whether they're at Coinbase, whether they're at an OTC desk, whether you have investments that are private placements, we want to be able to track it all, right? We want a dashboard that can show you everything, give you insights into performance, but also give you reporting, right? At the end of the day, like I said, what was it? Benjamin Franklin, the only certain things in life is life, death, and taxes, something like that. And the third one is what we're trying to help, right? At the end of the day, you're going to have to report taxes, and the IRS released pretty strict guidance on reporting basis by wallet and by custodian, which makes it difficult, right? It's, I think that there's a lot of room to improve the space, and we're trying to be a tool to help these institutional investors right now and eventually retail investors stay compliant, make sure that they can trade and not have worries about filing their taxes at, when April comes around. So eventually I think we're going to reach out to, also grab in traditional and alternative investments to make this a holistic investment tool. There's just so much work still needed on the crypto and digital asset front that's where our focus is right now. But at the end of the day, we want a one-stop shop for complete visibility into your portfolio, historical reporting, and just really having all of your confidence and kind of organization within one application.
Well, and kind of building off that, Chase, kind of putting your operations hat on, how are you thinking about scalability from, a client perspective, but also an internal dev perspective? Because obviously it's kind of a nascent product, very, very successful already, but, you're scaling rapidly. So when you think about client as well as, internal scalability, how are you looking at that from operations?
Yeah, and that's been something that we've had to focus on, right? Because like I said, when we initially started, we only had a set group of clients, right? It was MG Stover's fund admin clients. And we had better control over when they're adding new clients. They all were doing similar things, so we could build pretty accurately, or I guess we knew what we were expected to build. To your point now, we made a lot of adjustments to our own, application to make sure it's scalable from just a point of the amount of Ethereum wallets, right? We got to a point where when we were pushing this to the market that we got to be able to support thousands of Ethereum wallets, syncing regularly, making sure that reconciliation is happening accurately and on time. So I think from the actual development side, we had to make sure that the application was scalable to handle more clients and not have any kind of big issue happen. But I think from the client side too, it's scaling and building support for it, right? We're now trying to offer this to a much more diverse client base that all have different needs and wants. So it's really for us trying to make sure we build a product that can be, I don't want to say a one size fits all, because at the end of the day, we do work with very customized solutions for our clients, but we do want to build a product that, you know, one person can use for a specific use case and another person can use for another use case. And a very simple example is from a fund management perspective, right? You can have your back and middle office use it for reporting, for taxes, for working with their admin and managing books, but you can also use it for the front office on making investment decisions. So I think for us, it's obviously scaling the application and software so that it can handle more clients and just more users, but also scaling the support for it. Making sure that, you know, if you're trading an asset, that it can be tracked in auto, because the biggest issue we have is, you know, as a client, if someone that wants to use the software, I don't want 80% of my portfolio covered in auto. I want 100%, right? I want it all there, so I don't have any kind of manual intervention. I don't have any other sources I have to consider. And that's tough, right? Because every client is invested in different products on different exchanges, different venues. And so I think that's really been the biggest struggle, but also the coolest thing to see, the growth that we've had in the past year on just building out support for additional integrations, building out support for private assets, just really making sure that this product can kind of grow with the market. And it's been great. You know, we've obviously been having to build out the engineering team so that we can have better support on the application. But additionally, we've been really trying to have a lot of more strategic partners, right? People in different spots of the market and industry that can tell us, hey, this is what we want. This is what will benefit us. Because from our perspective, it's going to benefit you. It's going to benefit someone very similar to you in the market. So it's really just a virtuous cycle that we're trying to get feedback from the market to make sure that the product can really build and grow with it.
One of the things that normally we touch on in our episodes of DecentraLounge is sort of, and it's obviously Otto is very future facing and forward thinking with the way that you're currently building out, just even what you said with your response to Wyatt. Do you have any kind of ambitions for Otto, you know, moving into 2026 with the new year, or thoughts on sort of just the macro conditions of the whole market, how it's continuing its maturation, and, you know, maybe some thoughts of prognostications about the future for whether Otto or beyond for the whole industry in 2026?
Yeah, I'll touch on both. I mean, from Otto's perspective, you know, we really want to make a push to really enhance the dashboard and the analytics from a front office perspective. We know how to do the back office, service the back office people, because that's what Otto's been doing for 10 years. So I think that there's been a lot of importance placed on building out the actual UI of Otto, right? Giving a lot more tools and widgets that'll be helpful for fund managers. Also, as I'm sure every tech company is trying to do, making sure they can integrate AI in a very, effective way, right? We don't want to just throw a chatbot into the screen and just say, hey, it's like ChatGPT, but it's in Otto. We really want to have AI enhance the process and the workflow of our clients. So I think really figuring out how to make AI help them in their whatever process they have. And I think the other big thing for us too is just continuing to build out support for beyond crypto too. Like I said, we have ambitions to kind of stretch this beyond digital assets. When that happens, I'm not sure, but I think for 2026, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, the cost basis and taxes can be administered and handled within Otto. And then really just enhancing the UX, right? When a user goes in there, whether it's just the view and cosmetics of it, but like I said, having, you know, our vision is having this AI analyst, right? Really having someone that you could think of it as an analyst on your team that would do certain tasks that you would tell it to do anyways, but now it's in the application. It can do it in seconds, real time. And at the end of the day, it's just saving our clients money and providing more value to their enterprise and their operations. From a market perspective, you know, obviously I work with software that supports, you know, accounting and reporting, and it's all sometimes very boring stuff to talk about. So obviously I'm keeping on top of the broader market. And I think, you know, for us, it is going to have a feedback loop, but you mentioned it, regulation, right? This is something we've all been waiting for. The new administration, love them or hate them, they are pushing a lot of good regulation into the crypto space. You mentioned the Genius Act, Clarity Act, hopefully will get, put into place this year. I know that Mika has been doing well in Europe. And I think that stable coins, I know people have talked about it nonstop, but those would be very big in 2026. I think that as stable coins is kind of like a hook, right? It's kind of hooking these people into crypto, and they can see a bigger picture after they kind of initially get that first bite. I think that there is a lot of cool things happening with real world assets. I know that the DTCC or their subsidiary got the no action letter from the SEC to start tokenizing US equities, which I think is awesome. I think that this is going to allow much more flexibility and freedom for traders, whether it's just instant settlement, opening the trading hours to 24 hours like crypto for US equities. I think tokenizing private assets or private companies is really cool. I would love to get a piece of, XAI, but maybe I don't have the connections, maybe I don't have the accredited investor status. So I think there's a lot of cool things happening on the RWA front. But I think 2026 is going to be interesting. A lot happened in 2025. Of course, the beginning of 24, I believe we saw the first spot ETF. We're seeing a lot more applications come through. And, I was talking to someone actually this morning that she's not into crypto at all, but she does own a spot Bitcoin ETF. And that to me is kind of that first signal, right? It's someone getting some exposure, and she doesn't really know anything about Bitcoin, but it starts to provoke her to ask those questions, to get more interested into it. So I'm really just excited about more people getting into crypto. I think the biggest thing too is clearing the smoke from all of the crap of crypto, right? The meme coins. I know meme coins are still going to be a big thing going forward, but it's hard for someone to take the space seriously when they hear some of the very profitable trades people are making on seemingly meaningless coins, truly meme related coins. And I think that, when people see that, they just say, oh, crypto is just this gambling market, which that's an aspect of it, right? There's always going to be bad things happening. So I hope that investor trust increases. I know that there have been a lot of road bumps with trusting counterparties. After Celsius and FTX happens, it's hard for you to really trust putting your money into a custodian or an exchange. But even just security, right? Hacks. I know that this year there was, Bybit got hacked for I think 1.5 billion or something. Then you had smart contract risk. I think Balancer got hacked. So there's always going to be these risks that are pushing people away. But I think that those are just growing pains, and I'm hoping that we'll eventually come over and surpass those obstacles and make people feel comfortable with crypto. And at the end of the day, that's going to benefit OTTO. The more people that are into crypto, the more people we can service. And if you're getting into crypto, like I said, you're going to need a solution like OTTO to make sure you feel confident and comfortable.
Well, Chase, it's always great to connect with you. I feel like I always learn something when I step back, and obviously you're just a great person in general. So how can the wider audience stay in touch, learn more about what you're building, what your team is building, which is very important, and your socials, etc.?
Yeah, you can learn more about OTTO at our website, ottodigital.io. We do have a LinkedIn. I believe we may have a Twitter. That's something else I think probably in 2026 we'll make a bigger push on, is being more prevalent on social media. I think at the end of the day, if you wanted to learn more about OTTO, you can go to the website. There's a link there that you can learn more, and we can connect with you to understand how we can help your business. At the end of the day, even if you don't think that OTTO is something that can help your business, we'd love just to learn about what you guys are doing, because at the end of the day, there's always going to be some opportunity to kind of help players and participants in the market. So if you want to learn more, see a demo, please visit our website. But yeah, once again, I want to thank Ryan and Wyatt for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking about OTTO and MG Stover, and just really excited for 2026.
Well, thank you for joining us, Chase. For those of you who are watching and listening to today's episode, first of season 5 of DecentraLounge, thank you for tuning in. We'll be sure to link all those socials that Chase mentioned, including the OTTO website. You want to learn more, you can certainly reach out to him directly. We'll have all those linked below on the episode for the video on YouTube. And thanks so much. And we'll see you next time on DecentraLounge. Take care, everybody.